How's it going, everyone? Justin Smith there, the Director of Recruiting for Touchdown Alabama. Thank you guys so much for joining me today on our YouTube channel. Be sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, subscribe to the notification bell, be notified when we drop content on our YouTube channel. Today, I'm here to break down the Crimson Tide's entire 2023 recruiting class. It is the consensus #1 recruiting class. No matter what recruiting site you take a look at, the Crimson Tide's 2023 recruiting class will be ranked as the #1 class in the nation. Last year, we provided this breakdown video for you guys. We're bringing it back again for this particular recruiting cycle, and in this video, we're going to break down each guy individually, give you guys an opportunity to see what they bring to the table. We will have timestamps listed in the description of this video. You guys will be able to take a look at that and directly click on the timestamp of the player that you want to hear about. So like I said, we're going to break down each guy in deep detail, what they bring to the table. We're able to see most of these guys live in action and in person, and we're going to start with the Crimson Tide's 2023 quarterback signees and Eli Holstein and Dylan Lonergan. Starting with Holstein, a 2023 four-star quarterback out of Zachary High School in Louisiana. He was verbally committed to the Crimson Tide before Dylan Lonergan came on board, but he currently stands at 6'4", weighs approximately 220 pounds, so he's a big kid, big frame, a guy with a long frame. And we take a look at him, it kind of reminds you of some of the quarterbacks that Alabama has had in the past, looking at those bigger quarterbacks like Jake Coker, and take a look at his game. He's not a guy who's going to blow you away with his dual threat ability, but he can make some plays with his feet. Like I said, not really a burner, but he seems to have a sense for when the pocket is collapsing around him and when he needs to escape that pocket. Looks really good in terms of making those medium and short throws, great accuracy. She seems to show an ability to fit the ball into some tight windows when it comes to that medium throws and those short throws as well. But like I said, not really a guy who's going to blow you away with his speed when he does escape the pocket, but I think he's a little sneaky athletic when he gets into the open field. He can make some plays with his feet. A very strong runner at times, like I said, similar to Jake Coker. He's a guy who, with that frame, he may be able to do a quarterback sneak up, power his way into the end zone with that 6'4", 220-pound frame. Seemed to have improved his passing mechanics throughout his time at Zachary High School. Seems to have a strong arm at the moment. Can have some heat behind his passes, which allows him to be an accurate passer. Specifically, like I said, when it comes to the medium and short passing game, really seemed to thrive at that during his time at Zachary High School. And looking at Holstein and also looking at Lonergan before we even dive into them, take a look at these guys. When you take a look at the quarterbacks coming from high school and coming to the collegiate level, those guys have to just work on being consistent, because a lot of times at the high school level, of course, it's not as difficult as the collegiate level, and of course, you don't always have to be consistent at the high school level when you're going up against that competition. But as you increase your competition, specifically moving on to the collegiate level, being consistently accurate is going to be the most important thing for any quarterback prospect. But transitioning over to Lonergan, the 2023 four-star quarterback out of Brookwood High School in Georgia, currently standing at 6'2", weighs approximately 200 pounds. He's a guy who's a little bit more athletic and a little faster than Eli Holstein, if I had to take a guess. Of course, I haven't seen both of those guys race, but I have seen Lonergan live in person when Brookwood High School kicked off the 2022 football season. And when we take a look at Lonergan, he's a guy who could be listed as a dual threat. He's a guy who is a dual sport athlete who will play baseball and football at the University of Alabama. But just taking a look back at his career at Brookwood, you saw that they had some design runs in their playbook. There were times where he did the read option. There were times where he had quarterback draws, and you can just see that they had confidence in him running the football. And in that particular game that we did attend early in the season when they kicked off the season, he actually sealed up the game with a great run in the fourth quarter at the end of the game to basically seal up the win for Brookwood High School. But when we take a look at the way he throws the football, this is a guy with a really strong arm. Like I said, he's going to play football and baseball at Alabama, and he's going to be a pitcher for the Crimson Tide's baseball team. So, he has a very strong arm. He can make all of the throws. He can make the nice deep throws, great accuracy, great accuracy on his deep ball. But going back to Holstein and Lonergan as quarterbacks as a whole, you're going to need these guys to be consistently accurate to be great quarterbacks at the collegiate level. Just being consistent overall is definitely going to help you at that quarterback position. That is something Nick Saban preaches throughout his team, but specifically at the quarterback position, I think that is very very important. Now we're going to transition to the Crimson Tide's running back signees, starting with Justice Haynes, the 5'11", 200-pound running back out of Bruford High School in Bruford, Georgia. One of the best running backs in the country, obviously. Him and Young and a couple of other running backs in 2023 recruiting class were just fighting it out to be the #1 running back in his class. And you take a look at most recruiting sites, you're going to see either Young, Haynes, Cedric Baxter, one of those guys, Ruben Owens, one of those guys listed as the top running back in the country. But Haynes definitely deserves to be in that conversation because he's one of the most complete backs in the country. I mean, what can't this kid do? He can catch the football out of the backfield, shows great burst. He's a guy with that 5'11", 200-pound frame. He can get low and be a tough runner in the trenches. And when it comes to working his way through that first level and getting into the second level with those linebackers, I think the thing that really impressed me when I watched him earlier in the season when Bruford took on Thompson High School was his awareness and his knowledge of the game in terms of blocking for his quarterback as a running back. That is something we see a lot of younger running backs struggle with. He seems to have a great grasp of it at this point in his development. Going back to my talks with his dad, Jaren Haynes, who played some couple of years in NFL product of the Georgia Bulldogs, of course, he said he feels that Justice is a better natural running back prospect than he ever was. So when you take a look at Haynes, there's a lot to like. He can catch the football out of the backfield as well, really comfortable transitioning from being a blocker and transitioning into a safety valve, a safety window for his quarterback as a running back out of the backfield. He's a guy who has quick cutback ability in the backfield, great change of direction, great speed. Bruford High School used him as a kick returner this past season, and he was able to make some plays there. So he's an all-around back. I think one of the most complete backs in the country. He's a guy who is going to come in, I think, is going to make Alabama's running back room better by the way that he works. It seems every time he posted something on social media, it's him working inside the lab, working inside a gym, trying to get better, whether that is in a weight room or whether that is in a gym where he's working on his ability to make great cuts and having great balance. He's also a running back with great balance. So there's a lot, like I said, to like about Justice Haynes. I don't think there's something that he can't do on the football field, and I think as soon as he steps foot into Alabama's running back room, he's going to push those guys to be better, to be on the top of their game. I think Roydell Williams and Jason McClellan are the favorites to be Alabama's running back duo this upcoming season. But Haynes, I think, can make them sweat just with the work effort and the work ethic that he will bring into that locker room. But Richard Young, the Crimson Tide's other running back signee, a 5-star running back out of Lehigh High School in Florida, is also a great back. Like I said, him and Haynes were among the running backs battling it out to be the #1 running back in the country during this 2023 recruiting cycle. Throughout the recruiting cycle here, when you take a look at Young, similar frame, 5'11", weighing approximately 200 pounds as well. Take a look at his game. I think the thing that really stands out is his burst. This guy has a incredible burst. Whenever you see him get a handoff, it seems as if he just accelerates so quickly and quickly gets up into that next gear of his. So he's a guy who I think will really be able to do some damage with his speed, but he's also a guy who runs with power. He's a guy who you're going to have to bring your pass. You're going to have to wrap him up. You're not going to arm tackle this kid. So he's a tough runner, but like I said, I think that burst is a thing that really stands out to me. He's really comfortable catching the football out of the backfield as well. I think Haynes may be a little bit more further along in terms of running routes out of the backfield, but both of these guys have shown the ability to catch the football as running backs, and I think that is something that you have to do in this age of college football, in the age of football in general, with so many quarterbacks throwing the football all over the field. Specifically looking at Alabama last year, Jahmyr Gibbs was one of their top receivers, although he was a running back. So having guys like Young and Haynes who are able to catch the football out of the backfield, I think will be huge for Alabama in the future. Crimson Tide did sign a group of talented wide receivers during the 2023 recruiting cycle, including 2023 JUCO 4-star wide receiver Malik Benson out of Hutchinson Community College in Kansas. He is a native of Kansas, went to Hutchinson straight out of high school to improve his grades, of course, improve as a person, and improve as a prospect. And he improved as a prospect in a big way, picking up offers from Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, among other programs who are really pushing for him during this 2023 recruiting cycle. Many recruiting sites have him rated as the top JUCO prospect in the country during this particular recruiting cycle. In his own words, he told me this. I'm not saying I'm calling him this, but in his own words, he called himself a mix of Devontae Smith, Henry Ruggs, and also Jameson Williams. Of course, it'd be crazy if he was a combination of those great, speedy, explosive wide receivers, but he is a guy who wants to live up to that type of hype. Taking a look at his frame, currently standing at 6'1", weighing approximately 185 pounds. He's a guy who has elite speed, in my opinion, at the wide receiver position, an elite route runner at this particular point in his development. Of course, when you take a look at any JUCO prospect, you're looking at a guy who can come in and make an immediate impact in your program. And I'm pretty sure Nick Saban and Alabama's coaching staff, the wide receiver coach Harmon Wiggins, looked at Malik Benson and said, yo, this guy has great routes, guy with good speed, great hands, was one of the top JUCO wide receivers in terms of productivity during his time at Hutchinson Community College. He leads Hutchinson as their career leader in receiving yards, passing Cordell Patterson, who is a former Hutchinson Community College wide receiver as well. So this is a guy, in my opinion, who's going to be a player who could make an immediate impact in Tuscaloosa on next season because of that speed, because of those great hands, because of that elite route running ability. Definitely a guy to watch out for when it comes to the Crimson Tide's offense on next season, in my opinion. Tide also signed a couple of guys from the high school ranks, starting with Jalen Hale, a 2023 four-star wide receiver out of Longview High School in Texas. One of the longest wide receivers in this 2023 recruiting class. When you take a look at his arms, currently standing at about 6'2", weighing approximately 170, 180 pounds. He's a guy with a very slim frame at the moment, but we've seen slim wide receivers do great things in Tuscaloosa, looking at Devontae Smith. So we know weight is not going to be a problem when you take a look at any of these guys we're going to talk about in this video. Like Nick Saban says, he feels that Alabama has eliminated all weight problems on both sides of the spectrum, whether that is losing weight, whether that is gaining weight. We can take a look at Jalen Hale, but I do feel he will get stronger during his time in Tuscaloosa and just add on some muscle and add on some mass to that frame. I think the thing that has really impressed me about Jalen Hale over the last couple of months, taking a look at his senior season, also taking a look back at when we got an opportunity to see him in live action most recently at the Under Armour All-America event, is his route running. Seems to have incorporated some more releases in his game, seems to be more controlled when running his routes. When you take a look at his film, the thing that has always stood out to me when you take a look at what he brings to the table is his ability to high point the football, those great ball skills, go up and get it type of wide receiver. Of course, during his junior season, his quarterback did not have the strongest arm, so a lot of times he had to work back to the football. I actually asked him about that at the Under Armour All-America Media Day, and he said it just made him grow as a wide receiver. He said he felt it helped him because he said he feels every ball is not going to be perfect, but yo, just give me an opportunity to go and get it. And I think a lot of wide receivers in today's game play on the ground a lot. I think Jalen Hale is one of those guys who separates himself as a wide receiver who can go up and get the football, whether that is in the red zone, whether that is a deep ball down the field. But like I said, he's continuing to grow as a route runner. I think that is the thing that's going to take him to the next level as a wide receiver, at the next level for the Crimson Tide. The Tide also signed Jaren Hamilton, a 2023 four-star wide receiver out of Gainesville, Florida. One of the most explosive, one of the fastest high school wide receiver prospects in the country. Actually saw this guy in action earlier in the season, and he's one of those guys with explosive speed, quick burst. He seemed to create separation as soon as he made his release off the line of scrimmage. A lot of guys like Jalen Hale, like I said, he's added some releases to his game, which is going to help him as a wide receiver at the next level. Now, Jaren Hamilton, he doesn't seem to have a lot of releases because, like I said, he's the type of wide receiver who your secondary coach or defensive coaches are going to tell, yo, put a hand on that guy. You're going to need to slow him down at the line of scrimmage, because if he has a clean release off the line of scrimmage, he's going to have to step on you very quickly. And that goes back to his track background. He's a guy with a track background that dates back all the way to his elementary days. He has a couple of junior Olympic gold medals in the 100-meter dash and the 200-meter dash. His dad was a track runner in college, so that is where he gets that from. So like I said, the Crimson Tide wants to add more speed to the wide receiver room. Jaren Hamilton is one of those guys, and he's not a small guy, currently standing at 6'2", I think weighing approximately 185 pounds, probably leaning more towards the 190. He's a wide receiver prospect who's put together. His frame is filled out really well at the moment. Rounding out the Crimson Tide's 2023 wide receiver group is Cole Adams, guy who's one of the shorter wide receivers in his class at approximately probably 5'11"-ish. He's a guy who is short, just is a perfect fit for that slot wide receiver position in my mind. Let's take a look at his time at Owasso High School in Owasso, Oklahoma. He was a prospect who made some plays in the kick return game, in the punt return game. He's a guy who is a physical wide receiver despite his size. Actually played on the defensive side of football a couple of times for Owasso, a great route runner at this point in his development. I think he's a guy who is not getting talked about a lot, but I think he's a guy who Alabama fans and Alabama coaches are excited to have. He's a guy with a lot of speed as well. Currently holds a PR in the 100-meter dash of 10.65. So, he's a speedy guy. He's a burner. He's explosive. He's athletic. And despite his size being one of the shorter guys, similar to Jalen Hale, he's a guy who's not afraid to go up and get the football as well. He can play in the air. So he has some athleticism to his game as well. So Cole Adams is a nice get for the Crimson Tide. Ty Lockwood is Crimson Tide's lone tight end signing in the 2023 recruiting class, a 4-star tight end out of Independence High School in Tennessee, currently standing at approximately 6'4", weighing approximately 220 pounds. He's a big wide receiver prospect who is comfortable catching the football in different positions, lining up out wide, lining up as an inline tight end, has experience blocking. He's a guy who I applaud his high school, because I talk about this a lot. A lot of times, take a look at tight end prospects. They are flex out wide, I think, a little bit too much, because they are going to be tight ends at the college level. But I think at times at high school football level, a lot of schools like to use them at wide receiver. I feel a little bit too much. I think it hurts their development in a way, because these guys are going to still be called upon, and specifically at Alabama, to put their hands in the ground, like Nick Saban says, and block at times. And if you are able to be a complete tight end, be able to block, be able to catch the football, flex out wide at times, and also be an inline tight end, to present yourself as a big target, knowing when to sit down in zones and things like that are going to be vital in your development. I think when you take a look at the college level and in the NFL, tight ends is a position that has not really changed much. Those guys are still big guys with big frames, guys who can block, and guys who can present themselves as big receiving threats. When you take a look at NFL on Sunday, I think Ty Lockwood fits into that mold in terms of his skill set at this point in time. He's a guy who did not play a lot of his senior season because of an injury, but just going back to his junior season, you saw him sitting down in zones, which is something I thought was really impressive, because you see some guys at the college level struggle with that early on. So I think that is important for Ty Lockwood. Not the fastest tight end after the catch, but he can be productive at times, a tough runner after the catch, a guy who, like I said, has experience blocking, has experience presenting himself as a big target. I think his route running ability is above average for a tight end at this particular point in its development as well. I think he's a nice development piece for the Crimson Tide in that tight end room. It's no surprise that the Crimson Tide has signed another great offensive line class with a lot of potential, starting with 5-star offensive lineman Kadyn Proctor, who's believed by many to be the top offensive tackle in the country. Of course, flipping his commitment from Iowa to Alabama late in the 2023 recruiting cycle and signing with the Crimson Tide. Currently standing at approximately 6'7", weighing approximately more than 300 pounds. He's a guy who looks ready when you take a look at his film. Quick, agile, a guy who seems to have a step on the defense. A lot of times we talk about explosiveness when it comes to the defensive linemen, and take a look at those edge rushers and those interior guys who quickly get off the football. But Kadyn Proctor is a guy who can quickly get off the football as well. He's even spent some time on the defensive side of football for his high school back in Iowa. But he's a guy who I think is the real deal at the tackle position. Great footwork, carries his weight really well, looks to be really athletic for a 6'7" guy, moves really well, aggressive blocker. I think he's the full package for the Crimson Tide at that tackle position. Great length at 6'7". I think he's a guy who's going to be coming into Alabama's offensive line room ready to make an immediate impact. And of course, a lot goes into that. And when you take a look at guys like Kadyn Proctor, who want to come in and make that immediate impact in year one, but similar to a lot of these guys in the 2023 recruiting cycle, he will be one of the guys who will enroll early, will enroll in January, get an opportunity to get a running start, and possibly getting some early playing time in Tuscaloosa. He's excited, of course, in his own words. He feels he has to get hit in the mouth to get better. He thinks the Crimson Tide's competition is going to be like getting hit in the mouth every day when he gets the opportunity to go up against some of the best in Tuscaloosa. The Crimson Tide also signed some in-state offensive lineman prospects, including Ryqueze McElderry out of Anniston High School in Anniston, Alabama. Among these guys who the Crimson Tide signed along the offensive line, he's the guy who we have seen the most, currently standing at 6'3", weighing approximately 340 pounds. pounds, projected to be an offensive guard at the next level, and this kid is a mauler, always looking for someone to block when it comes to run block. I think that is his biggest strength at the moment, his ability to get up to the second level, his ability to continue to block down the field, the effort that he shows, the strength and the anger that he plays with. Although he's not like that outside the field, as you guys will see when we drop our interview with him. He's a different guy outside the field, but on the field, he's a mean, aggressive guy who I think is going to be a vocal leader in the future when it comes to the Crimson Tide's offensive line room, and that's in their team as a whole in Tuscaloosa. So there's a lot to like about McElderry, in my opinion, when you take a look at Ryqueze. I think he's a dark horse to make an immediate impact. Of course, you're not going to hear a lot of people talking about him, but he's the guy I will keep my eyes on if I was you. The Crimson Tide also signed Miles McVay, a 2023 four-star offensive lineman out of East St. Louis High School in Illinois. He's currently standing at 6'6", weighing approximately more than 340 pounds. And like I said earlier, weight problems are not a problem in Tuscaloosa anymore. It seems guys are not having any problems with dropping weight or gaining weight when it comes to the Crimson Tide strength and conditioning program. Taking a look at Miles McVay, I think he's a guy who's going to benefit from dropping some weight once he gets to Tuscaloosa. But when you take a look at what he has already shown you with his frame and with him not being in the best of shape, especially compared to the shape I think he will be in once he gets an opportunity to go through the Crimson Tide strength and conditioning program. He carries his weight really well, despite being, like I said, 6'6", 6'7", weighing approximately 340 pounds. He's a guy who knows how to make himself wide. That is something I saw a lot of guys complaining about when I saw Miles at the Under Armour Future 50. They were like, yo, he's so wide, he's so hard to get around. He's not a guy you're going to be able to bull rush. You're not going to be able to bull rush this guy. He's too big, he's too strong to get bull rush. So there's a lot to like about McVay. He has shown an ability to get down the field and block as well, has shown some effort in that area as well, and I think he is a better pass blocker than run blocker at this point in his development. Similar to another long offensive lineman prospect who the Crimson Tide have a signature from in Wilkin Formby, a four-star offensive lineman out of Northridge High School in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. He is a native of Tuscaloosa who is going to go to the University of Alabama, basically go around the corner to spend the next 3 to 4 years of his football career, his football life. Like I said, he's 6'8". He's a true 6'8". I know a lot of times, specifically at high school football level, you see coaches and schools adding a couple of inches on height, adding some pounds to a guy's weight, but we know for a fact that Wilkin Formby is 6'8". That is what he's measured at. That is what he's told us he measures at. So most recruiting sites, that is where you're going to see him listed at. With that long frame, similar to Miles, like I said, I think he's a better pass blocker than run blocker at this particular point in his development. He's really a more technical offensive lineman. When you take a look at his technique and pass protection, I think he's still growing as a run blocker in terms of being more mobile, keeping his feet up under him. Like I said, he's 6'8". Of course, guys like that can be a bit clumsy. 6'8", weighing approximately 300 pounds. But I think he is a guy who, like I said, is one of the more technically sound offensive lineman prospects in this 2023 recruiting class, but he's still growing as well. I think once he is able to become a better run blocker, I think he's going to be a more complete offensive lineman at the next level. Can be a nasty offensive lineman at times, but I think that is the area of improvement that I'm going to look for him to make during his time in Tuscaloosa. But like you guys can see on that film that we are showing you, he's 6'8", and he's just towering over the competition. He was towering over everyone at the high school level. But we're going to wrap up the Crimson Tide's offensive line group with Olaus Alinen, a Finland native who signed with the Crimson Tide over offers from programs like Miami, Ohio State, Georgia, and others. And he's a guy who is a better run blocker at this point in time. He's a guy who shows tremendous effort, great balance, great footwork. He's a guy who is really impressive in terms of being just an athletic big guy, but he's not the most technically sound guy, which is what you expect from a guy who did not grow up playing football exclusively, with them being a native of Finland. They don't play football in Finland. They play ice hockey. So he grew up playing ice hockey, and in his own words, he feels, although in your mind, you probably think, yo, ice hockey, they wear shoulder pads, football, they wear shoulder pads, they are physical, and ice hockey, they get into fights, so it should be some similarities, but every time he's asked about the similarities between hockey and football, he doesn't really talk about the physical side, which is, I think, what most people would expect. He kind of talks about just the experiences and the knowledge that you gain from being just in a team sport when it comes to comparing both of those sports. But he's a physical guy, so I think he is pulling some of that physicality from his ice hockey background. So I think he's a physical offensive lineman. Like I said, he's an athletic big guy, can get to the second level, will continue to block down the field, shows great effort, but like I said, he's still growing as a pass blocker and pass protection. That is something I think the Crimson Tide going to prioritize in terms of developing him. But in terms of being physical, in terms of being a mauler, being able to make some blocks down the field and being able to be a great run blocker, I think the Crimson Tide will not have any trouble motivating him to be a great blocker and just run over some guys. The next group we're going to talk about is the defensive line. In my opinion, I think this is a position group where the Crimson Tide have to improve the defense as a whole. I think it's one of those things that is separating their defense from programs like Georgia. And the Crimson Tide's head coach Nick Saban talked about it after the Crimson Tide signed these guys. He said they wanted to improve up front. In his opinion, he feels they have guys who can come in and play early and will help them in improving on the defensive line. He feels that they have succeeded by signing these guys in the 2023 recruiting class. And I think they have succeeded as well. And one of the reasons why is James Smith, 2023 5-star defensive lineman out of Carver Montgomery High School in Montgomery, Alabama. Similar to Ryqueze, who I talked about earlier, he's one of those guys who we saw a lot of during his senior season. We saw him play 2 times. We got an opportunity to see him train at Madhouse Training in Montgomery, Alabama as well. And if I had to describe his game in one word, it would be bully. He's a bully type of player. He's a physical player, a guy who loves just to fight and loves to battle it out in the trenches. I think he has fun there. He seems to just be excited and seems to just have fun running over guys and just knocking guys and just pulling them all around the field and just doing what he wants to do when it comes to being on the defensive line. And when we take a look at his frame, currently standing at approximately 6'3", weighing I think approximately 290 pounds. He's a guy who's explosive for his size. I think he is a guy, when you take a look at being physical and being, just like I said, a mean defensive lineman, you think of guys who are just big and maybe a bit on the slower side. James Smith is not. He's, like I said, explosive first step, and he's been dominant ever since I've seen him going back to his 10th grade year at Carver. Of course, he transferred to IMG Academy during his junior season. He was productive at IMG Academy. And when you take a look at those games when he played with them, he was looked at as one of their best defensive linemen. He jumped out on film at IMG before transferring back to Carver Montgomery. Of course, he's a 5-star defensive lineman. He's a guy who I am going to stamp as a guy who could make an immediate impact in Tuscaloosa. And I think the energy that he plays with, I think, is going to be infectious once he gets to Tuscaloosa. But a couple of the other guys who the Crimson Tide signed in this 2023 recruiting class along the defensive line, we take a look at Edric Hill. He's a guy to keep your eyes on as well, in my opinion. I wouldn't say an immediate impact guy, but he's a guy who could be developed into a great defensive lineman for the Crimson Tide. When you take a look at Hill, I think he's a guy with a quick, explosive first step. I think that's the thing that really stands out about his game. I think he's a guy who's physical as well. I think, like I said, I think this is what has separated Alabama's defense in particular from other top programs who have great defenses in today's game, like Georgia. And I think Hill is one of those guys who's going to bring some of that physicality and that nastiness back. When you take a look at his film, another guy who the Crimson Tide signed on the defensive line, who I am really high on, is Jordan Renaud. Renaud just stole the show at the Under Armour All-America event on last week. He was everywhere. I think he dominated every one-on-one rep. I think he won every one. He won all of the ones that I saw. So he was just productive and disruptive at practice. Even during a team event, he was able to just put pressure on his quarterback during those Under Armour All-America practices. Just specifically going back, talking about Renaud in the past, I've always talked about his strength. When you take a look at his highlights, you see a lot of times he's pushing defensive linemen back into their quarterback, just back into, pushing offensive linemen back into the backfield, pushing them into their quarterback. So going into the Under Armour All-America event, I knew he had a lot of strength. I knew he had a lot of power, but the thing that really stood out to me was that explosiveness that he was able to show, his ability to get around some offensive linemen during those one-on-ones, be disruptive during the game, was one of the leading tacklers for his Under Armour All-America team. So Jordan Renaud is the guy to keep your eyes on as well. A versatile defensive lineman, currently standing at 6'4", weighing approximately 260 pounds, I would say. Now, I know a lot of sites probably have him listed at 250, but watching him at the Under Armour All-America game, he didn't look like a smaller defensive lineman. He looked like one of the bigger guys at 6'4", 260 pounds. And his bending ability is the thing that really stole the show in my mind. This kid's ability to bend was on full display, looked really comfortable. Going through the drills, he looked as if he was one of the more polished defensive linemen at this particular Under Armour All-America event. So Jordan Renaud is a guy I am really high on at this particular point in time. I'm excited to see what he will do in Tuscaloosa. Hunter Osborne rounds out the Crimson Tide's interior defensive line group. Osborne is a guy we have seen a lot of out of here, Trussville High School in Trussville, Alabama. I think his biggest strength is the ability to defend the run at this particular time. He knows he wants to get better as a pass rusher. That is one of the reasons why has been working with Coach Swift out of Birmingham, one of the best defensive lineman trainers inside the state, in my opinion, specifically for guys who want to improve as pass rushers, just want to improve as defensive linemen as well. But specifically with Hunter, that is something that he has worked to improve on. But going back to his younger days, this is a guy who has consistently shown the ability to play in space. I think that's one of the things that first stood out to me when I started evaluating him, was his ability to play sideline to sideline, play in space, has a basketball background going back to his earlier days as a athlete. And I think that comes on display when he's in space, when he's breaking down, basically getting down in that basketball stance, knowing when to create that particular situation when defending those shifty running backs in open space. So I really like Hunter Osborne. I really like the development that he has shown as well as a pass rusher. Saw him at the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game a couple of weeks ago, and he really seemed to have put some rush moves in his bag, showed off a couple of those during the one-on-one portion of that particular event. So Hunter Osborne is another great development piece for the Crimson Tide in this particular recruiting class. The Crimson Tide will have to replace one of the best outside linebackers of all time, Will Anderson, in the future. Not saying that these edge rushers who we're going to talk about are going to be thrust into that spot as soon as they step on campus, but these are two elite edge rushers in my opinion. Starting with Keon Keeley, the 5-star edge rusher out of Berkeley Prep in Tampa, Florida. A lot of people consider him to be the number one edge rusher in the nation. Currently standing at 6'6", with approximately 240 pounds. He's one of the guys who we saw earlier in the season, and his size is verified as well. He's a true 6'6". If you want to confirm that, just look up the photo of him beside Will Anderson, and you can easily see he's like an inch or two taller than Will. And take a look at that frame. That is why a lot of people are comparing him to Will at this particular point in time. Just take a look at their similar frames and their similarities there. But when we take a look at Keeley, I think the biggest strength of his game at this particular point, in my opinion, is his ability to get after the quarterback. When the quarterback drops back at high school level, when they competed against Keeley, he was consistently in their face. That's just how disruptive he was with that quick burst off the edge, with that explosiveness that he plays with. And with that frame and his bending ability, he was a mismatch for most high school tackles. So I think he's going to really shine there early in his career in Tuscaloosa. I think he's still growing in terms of defending the run. I think that is something that separated Will Anderson, in my opinion. Of course, we saw him getting after the quarterback, piling up sacks, but Alabama was able to put him inside, use him all over that defensive line whenever they needed Will Anderson to make a play, and he was really disruptive and really effective at defending the run. I think that is something that Keeley is going to work to improve on. I think if I had to point out any parts of his game that he will need to improve on, that is the part of the game that I think he will focus on in terms of him getting better. Of course, he's going to want to continue to add things to his game as an edge rusher, as a pass rusher, but I think he's a little bit further along at that point in his game at this point in time. But also the Crimson Tide signed Yhonzae Pierre. He's a guy who a lot of Alabama fans are excited about because he's super explosive off the edge. I'm talking about when we saw him play earlier in the season that you follow high school, it appeared he was in the backfield before the ball even snapped. He was just quickly in the backfield, just blowing up plays. He's a long guy with long arms, 6'4". Kid, a guy who is not as filled out as Keeley is at this particular point in time. He would need to gain some weight. Going back to what I said, the Crimson Tide do not have a weight problem. They will have no problem putting on weight on Yhonzae Pierre, adding some mass, adding some muscle to his frame. And I think once he adds that muscle, add that weight to his frame, I think he's going to be able to stack and shed a little bit better, be able to take on blocks a little bit better, because at the high school level with that frame, a lot of times offensive linemen stuck him a couple of times. He bounced back a little bit because of that weight, doesn't have the mass that you're going to want at the collegiate level. I think he's going to definitely benefit from the Crimson Tide strength and conditioning program once he gets to Tuscaloosa. But I'm really excited about Yhonzae, great kid off the field, a great player on the field as well. Like I said, I think his biggest strength is that explosiveness. I think that's just hard to contain, that quick first step, and just how explosive and how fast he is off the edge. Alabama's had some great linebackers during the Nick Saban era, but unfortunately for the Crimson Tide, the linebacker play has not been up to that standard over the last couple of years. I think the future of the Crimson Tide inside linebacker room is bright, and I think has become even brighter by signing Qua Russaw and Justin Jefferson. First, looking at Russaw, the 5-star linebacker out of Carver High School in Montgomery, Alabama, who was a package deal with James Smith, the other 5-star recruit out of Carver, Montgomery, who the Crimson Tide signed in the 2023 recruiting class. Taking a look at Russaw, the moment he steps on campus, he's going to be one of the bigger linebackers in the Crimson Tide linebacker room. If you think I am joking, just take a look at that footage right there. Currently standing at 6'2", weighing approximately 230 pounds. I think he's probably in that 235, 240 range, if I had to say so myself. He's jacked. He's muscles popping out everywhere. We can take a look at this kid. So he is going to benefit from the Crimson Tide strength and conditioning room, of course, but he already looks as if he has spent the last 3 to 4 years there. And when you take a look at his game, I think the thing that really stands out is his closing speed, his ability to play sideline to sideline. This is a guy who gets to the football really, really quickly. An explosive linebacker who Carver Montgomery used as an edge rusher and also used him off the ball at times. In terms of being an edge rusher, he seems to know when to stay at home, when to attack the football. Shows some improvements and some great development at that particular point in his game. Played off the ball and was able to play sideline to sideline really, really well in terms of making sure that the running back does not get around the corner. Shows some explosiveness on really fast and speedy running backs. I'm talking about running backs who are projected to be 4- and 5-star running backs in the future inside the state of Alabama. So Russaw is the guy, in my opinion, who Alabama fans should be really excited about because of the speed, because of his size, because of the physicality that he plays with. Guy who can be a punishing tackler as well, so he tackles with great force. I think the only question mark I would have about Russaw is ability to play in zone coverage and defend the pass. I think he wasn't put in that position a lot at Carver Montgomery. Like I said, he played off the ball, but he played a lot more as an edge rusher during his senior season. So I'm excited to see him develop in terms of defending the pass. The Tide also signed a JUCO linebacker, Justin Jefferson. I think he's going to be one of the fastest linebackers in the country, and he has the 40 time to prove it. Has previously run a 4.38 in the 40-yard dash. When the last time you seen that out of a linebacker? Of course, he's going to need to add on some weight because he's 6'2", approximately 210 pounds. So he's going to need to add on 15 to 20 pounds here, possibly over the next couple of months here for the Crimson Tide. He will early enroll. I think he's already on campus as we speak. So he had an opportunity to go through winter training with the Crimson Tide. Also have an opportunity to go to spring training and go to spring practice of the Tide to learn the Crimson Tide's playbook on the defensive side of the football. This guy plays with a lot of physicality, a lot of knowledge. Seems to always wants to hit somebody. So with that 4.38 speed, you know his closing speed is ridiculous as well. I think once he adds on that weight, I think we're going to see what Justin Jefferson can bring to the table. I think he's a little bit further along as a pass defender at the linebacker position than Russaw, and I think this goes back to the fact that he's a JUCO kid, so he has had an opportunity to defend the pass at the college level, basically. Alabama undoubtedly signed the top defensive back class in the nation, starting with the number 1 defensive back in the nation, number 1 safety prospect, Caleb Downs out of Mill Creek High School in Georgia. A Swiss Army knife in the secondary, was a Swiss Army knife throughout his career at Mill Creek. I mean, this guy played everywhere. He was a wildcat quarterback. He was a running back. He was a slot wide receiver. He was a defensive back. He was a punt returner, kick returner. He did everything but basically fill up the Gatorade in the cooler. So he basically was, like I said, everything for Mill Creek. Led them to a state championship as a senior. Had an opportunity to see him play at the beginning of the year from Mill Creek, and he was super impressive in that matchup. The first time he touched the football was as a running back, and he took that play to the house. So he's a guy who is an explosive athlete. And I think, in my opinion, if he wanted to be a slot wide receiver, if he wanted to be a running back, he would be a top player at that position if he wanted to be another position. But he is a defensive back prospect. The Crimson Tide are lucky and fortunate to have in this 2023 recruiting class. A lot of people are excited about this kid because of his intangibles, the things that he brings to the table. It's just some of the things you can't really measure. Of course, he has great size, 5'11", weighing approximately 190 pounds, but this kid's knowledge, his high football IQ, that is what separates him from all the competition. I mean, when you take a look at his film, you could just watch it. You can tell that he's a step ahead of everyone else. He seems to know where the football is going before the ball is even snapped. Just seems to know what is going on. You can just see that he has a good grasp of the game at all times. I think this goes back to the fact that his father is a former college coach. His brother, of course, was a wide receiver in North Carolina. I expect him to move on to the NFL draft as one of the top wide receivers in this year's NFL draft. But Caleb Downs, super impressive, high IQ, guy who just anticipates really well. But I think the thing that really separates him, in my opinion, is his ability to make tackles in the open field, not afraid to come down and help and run support, and play in the box because of his versatility. So I think his versatility and his ability to make some nice tackles in the open field is the thing that really stands out to me. His anticipation, of course, is off the charts. I think this guy can come in and just make an immediate impact in Tuscaloosa. If you didn't see the video of him working and practicing with the Crimson Tide in the Sugar Bowl, be sure to check out that clip. It is on our Twitter page. You can just see he looks like a natural. It looks like he has been inside the Alabama football program for about 3 years already. So the Tide are happy to have Caleb Downs on board. They're also happy to have 5-star defensive back Jahlil Hurley on board. A very long defensive back at 6'3" out of Florence High School in Alabama. He's a guy who's used as a wide receiver and as a defensive back at the high school football level. So those ball skills are going to translate with him over to the next level, and with him when he moves over to being a defensive back full time. I expect him to be a cornerback at the next level with those long arms. And he's a guy who excels in man-to-man coverage. Also looks really good in zone coverage. He's really knowledgeable of the game. I've watched him play a lot over the last 2 seasons. He's never out of place. He's a kid who just knows exactly where to be in zone coverage. Like I said, really impressive in man coverage. Knows how to bump and run, be physical at times. Of course, he's going to have to add on some weight to his frame. He's a little bit on the slimmer side right now, but with those long arms and with some of the things that he brings to the table already, I think he's a guy who is going to be really good in Tuscaloosa in the future. The Tide also signed another in-state prospect in Tony Mitchell out of Thompson High School in Alabaster, Alabama. All this guy knows how to do is win. You're not going to find too many guys in the country outside of his teammates who have won 4 straight 7A state championships, and it's exactly what Tony Mitchell helped Thompson do during his time in Alabaster. Taking a look at Mitchell, take a look at his frame, take a look at him. You probably think he's a linebacker, just how big he is. He's only standing 6'2". I think he's leaning more towards 200 pounds. He's always told me like he's around 190, but I think he's leaning more towards the 200-pound range at this particular point in time. Has experience playing cornerback and safety at Thompson High School. Has bounced back in between the 2 positions throughout his career. Started off as a cornerback as a freshman, moved to safety during his sophomore and junior season, then moved back to cornerback during his senior season. I project him to be a safety at the next level for the Crimson Tide. I think he's going to be better when he's able to roam around the secondary and be a physical safety with that size that he already possesses. The Tide also signed another 5-star defensive back in Desmond Ricks. I know Ricks reclassified from the 2024 class to the 2023 class. He was projected to be the number 1 defensive back in the 2024 class, transferred to the 2023 class. Probably not the number 1 guy. We got guys like Caleb Downs and Kamani McLean already in that class, but he's the guy who is challenging those guys for those spots. I think I had an opportunity to watch him at the Under Armour All-America event last week. He really impressed with his physicality, his ability to play bump and run coverage, but also be a physical defensive back, and a great technique that he has in coverage. Seems to know how to keep up with wide receivers, how to stay in the wide receiver's hip. Never seems to lose his confidence in terms of knowing when he's in place to make a play. So I really like Desmond Ricks. I like some of the things that he already has in his game, and that goes with his length. I know a lot of people don't talk about his length a lot because he at that Under Armour game, he was one of the longer defensive backs there, and just looking at his extremities, his long arms, and his long legs. So I really like Desmond Ricks after watching him at the Under Armour All-America event this past week. Great footwork as well. Rounding out the Crimson Tide's defensive back room was Brayson Hubbard, who is the biggest question mark when you take a look at the Crimson Tide's defensive back room. And that the only reason there's a question mark because he's a guy who played quarterback basically exclusively throughout his time at Ocean Springs High School in Mississippi. He's projected to be a safety at next up for the Crimson Tide. We saw him practice in that clip with Caleb Downs. You could also find a clip of Brayson Hubbard flying around the internet with him practicing with the Crimson Tide for the Sugar Bowl. Of course, he does not look as clean and as polished as a Caleb Downs, and I think this goes back to the fact that, like I said, he played basically exclusively quarterback. So he's going to have to grow in terms of some of the smaller things as a defensive back, because we all know the best way to get better at something is by doing it. So he's going to have to practice at being a defensive back. But what do we know about Brayson Hubbard is his speed. He's explosive, crazy athletic. He's a guy who could have took another career path and played baseball at the collegiate level, possibly as in the major leagues as a major league baseball player. So we know he has some crazy athleticism. He's very strong, although he does not look the part. I watched him at the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star event in games. In game, there were a time where he was basically pulling guys and carrying guys to first downs in that game. So he's a physical guy with a lot of speed. I'm excited and interested in seeing what he develops into with them just continuing to grow as a defensive back. But rounding out the Crimson Tide's 2023 recruiting class is three-star kicker signee Conor Talty out of St. Rita High School in Chicago, Illinois. Surprisingly, he's not the only Illinois product who's committed to the Crimson Tide and signed a national letter of intent, because Miles McVay is also from Illinois, with him being out of East St. Louis High School. But taking a look at Talty, like I said, one of the top kickers in the 2023 recruiting class. And some of the quarterbacks, I think the biggest thing with kickers is being consistent. You're going to have to be consistently good. Take a look at Will Ryqueze that year where the Crimson Tide won the national championship with Mac Jones. Devontae Smith won the Heisman Trophy. Of course, Will Ryqueze did not miss a kick, and the perfection is something that you're going to want as a kicker, and as a kicker, you're going to want to have great technique as well. It's something that Talty knows. You guys can check out our interview with him on our YouTube page. But he nailed a 51-yard field goal during his senior season at St. Rita High School, which was really impressive. But of course, he wants to be consistent as a kicker, has experience being a kicker and being a punter. Actually took a fake punt back for a touchdown, so maybe we can see that in the future for the Crimson Tide. So we know that Talty has the leg strength to kick a 51-yard field goal. We know that he is able to do that, but when you take a look at kickers, like I said, you're going to have to prove that over and over and over again to be a great kicker. So he's a guy who knows that. He prides himself on perfection, in his own words. So he definitely wants to improve on that technique. But that is what I want to do in this video, of course, break down, like I said, each guy in the Crimson Tide's 2023 recruiting class and what they bring to the table. Look at any recruiting site, this class is going to be the #1 recruiting class in the nation, loaded from top to bottom. I know a lot of people are saying that the Crimson Tide have fallen off. The dynasty is done, and Alabama and Nick Saban should just go away and it's over. But the Crimson Tide are not going down. The dynasty for the Alabama Crimson Tide is not going down without a fight, especially after signing this loaded recruiting class. But thank you guys so much for joining me today on this video. Be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Also, subscribers, hit the notification bell, be notified when we drop content on the YouTube page. As always, I am Justin Smith, the director of recruiting for Touchdown Alabama.